Welcome to a peaceful journey. Good evening, dear listener. As the world outside quiets and the stars begin their gentle watch, allow yourself to settle into the soft embrace of your bed. Let the worries of the day drift away like leaves on a calm stream. Tonight, we embark on a soothing adventure with the masterful detective Hercule Poirot in The Forgotten Murder. This tale of quiet intrigue and clever unraveling is crafted to guide you toward restful slumber, each twist unfolding like a dream. Breathe deeply, close your eyes, and let the story carry you into peaceful sleep. Chapter 1. The Whispering Manor. The carriage wheels crunched over the gravel path, winding through the undulating hills of Devonshire, where the landscape seemed to hold its breath under a canopy of ancient oaks. Their gnarled branches twisted like forgotten spells, casting elongated shadows in the fading light of an October sunset. Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective, adjusted his silk cravat and peered out the window, his sharp gray eyes absorbing the serene isolation. The air carried a crisp bite, mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil and distant bonfires, a far cry from the ceaseless clamor of London's fog-shrouded streets. He had received the invitation from Sir Reginald Hawthorne only a week prior, a neatly penned letter on embossed stationery that spoke of old camaraderie and a need for respite. "Come, my dear Poirot," it read. "Eldridge Manor awaits with its quiet charms and a cellar of fine ports. Leave your puzzles behind. Here, time moves at the pace of a lazy river." Poirot, ever the man of method, had accepted, sensing beneath the cordial words a subtle undercurrent of unrest. After all, true peace often masked deeper turbulences. As the carriage halted before the manor's imposing facade, Poirot stepped down, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the mossy drive. Eldridge Manor rose like a relic from a bygone era, its stone walls cloaked in ivy that whispered secrets to the wind. Tall, mullioned windows gleamed with the last hues of daylight, and the entrance arch bore carvings of mythical beasts, griffins and wyverns frozen in eternal vigilance. A butler, tall and gaunt with a face etched by years of discreet service, emerged from the heavy oak doors. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome," he intoned, in a voice as smooth as aged leather. "Sir Reginald awaits in the drawing room. I am Graves. Allow me to take your valise." Poirot nodded graciously, his moustache twitching in approval of the man's efficiency. "Merci, Graves. The journey was most invigorating. The English countryside, it revives the spirit, no?" Inside, the manor unfolded in layers of faded grandeur. The foyer boasted a sweeping staircase of polished mahogany, flanked by suits of armor that stood like silent guardians. Crystal chandeliers dangled overhead, their prisms catching stray beams and scattering rainbows across Persian rugs worn soft by generations of footsteps. Poirot followed Graves through a corridor lined with oil paintings, portraits of stern ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow his every move. Sir Reginald awaited in the drawing room, a spacious chamber warmed by a roaring fire in a hearth large enough to roast an ox. The baronet, a robust man in his late 50s with a shock of silver hair and a ruddy complexion from years of fox hunts, rose from a wingback chair, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "Poirot, old chap, you've made it just in time for the gloaming. Come, warm yourself by the fire. Graves, fetch the chamomile, none of that strong stuff. Our guest prefers subtlety." Poirot clasped his friend's hand warmly. "Sir Reginald, it is a delight. Your manner, it is magnifique. A symphony of history and hush." They settled into plush armchairs, the fire crackling like a confidential storyteller. Graves returned with a silver tray bearing delicate china cups steaming with herbal infusion, accompanied by a plate of buttery scones dotted with currants. Poirot inhaled the soothing aroma, allowing it to ease the travel's fatigue. "Tell me, mon ami," Poirot began, sipping carefully. "What prompted this gracious summons? You speak of repose, yet your eyes, they hold a spark of something more." Sir Reginald chuckled, a deep rumble that echoed off the panelled walls. "Perceptive as ever, Poirot. Truth be told, the manor has been too quiet since my wife's passing last year. The children are off in the city, pursuing their ambitions, and I'm left with echoes and memories. But enough melancholy. Let me regale you with the tales of Eldridge's heyday." As the flames danced, casting playful shadows on tapestries depicting medieval hunts, Sir Reginald wove stories of the manor's golden age. He spoke of lavish Edwardian balls where debutantes in silk gowns twirled under gas lamps, their laughter mingling with the strains of a string quartet. One ancestor, a dashing colonel, had returned from the Boer War with tales of African sunsets and diamond caches, hosting feasts that lasted till dawn. Another, a scholarly aunt, had transformed the East Wing into a botanical haven, importing exotic orchids that bloomed in defiance of the English chill. Poirot listened intently, his fingers steepled, absorbing not just the words, but the nuances. The slight hesitation when Sir Reginald mentioned certain rooms, the fond yet wistful tone. "And the library?" Poirot inquired gently. "I have heard whispers of its treasures." "Ah, the library, my sanctuary," Sir Reginald replied, his eyes lighting up. "Come, let's adjourn there. The fire here grows too merry. The books offer a cooler companionship." They rose, carrying their cups, and traversed a short hallway adorned with antique clocks, each ticking in asynchronous rhythm, as if competing to mark time's passage. The library door creaked open to reveal a cavernous space, shelves soaring to the ceiling, laden with volumes bound in calfskin and morocco. A rolling ladder leaned against one wall, and in the center stood a massive oak desk cluttered with maps and curios, a brass sextant, a jade idol from the Orient, a collection of pressed leaves under glass. Poirot's gaze roamed appreciatively, but it halted abruptly on a faded portrait hanging above the mantel. The painting depicted a woman of striking beauty, her auburn hair cascading in waves, her green eyes holding a mix of defiance and sorrow. She wore a gown of emerald velvet, a pearl choker at her throat, one hand resting on a leather-bound book. "Who is this enchanting figure?" Poirot asked, his voice laced with genuine curiosity. Sir Reginald approached, his expression softening into reminiscence. "That, my friend, is Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, my great-aunt. A woman ahead of her time. Born in 1875, she was a suffragette in her youth, scandalizing the family with her rallies and writings. She vanished in 1923 during a storm-swept night. The authorities deemed it a tragic mishap. She was fond of cliffside walks, and the paths can be treacherous." Poirot stepped closer, examining the brushstrokes. "Vanished. But the portrait, it captures not just beauty, but a secret, perhaps. The eyes, they plead for understanding." Sir Reginald set his cup down, leaning on the desk. Indeed, there were rumors. Some said she fled to Paris with a lover, weary of provincial life. Others whispered of foul play, a disputed inheritance, jealous relatives. But no body was found, no evidence surfaced. The case faded like ink on old parchment. Now, she's just a ghost in the family lore. The clock on the mantel struck 10, its chimes resonant and clear, pulling Poirot from his contemplation. Outside, the wind had picked up, rustling the leaves like hushed conversations. "Fascinating," Poirot murmured. "Even in such tranquility, the past insists on being heard. Tell me more of her life. Did she keep diaries, perhaps?" Sir Reginald nodded, crossing to a shelf and retrieving a slim volume bound in faded blue. This was hers, a journal of sorts, filled with poetry and observations. Listen to this entry. The manor walls close in like a lover's embrace, yet I yearn for the wild seas beyond. Secrets burrow deep here, waiting for the right hand to unearth them. Poetic, wasn't she? As they pored over the pages, the words painted vivid scenes. Lady Evelyn's adventures in London salons, debating with intellectuals, her passion for astronomy, charting stars from the manor's turret, a cryptic reference to a shadowy visitor who brought gifts of rare books but demanded silence. Poirot's mind, that impeccable machine, began to whir softly. Disappearances were puzzles he savored, each clue a thread in a tapestry. The conversation flowed onward, touching on lighter matters, the manor's hidden passages, built during the Civil War for smuggling royalists, a legendary oak in the grounds said to grant wishes to the pure of heart. Sir Reginald shared an anecdote of his boyhood, sneaking through those tunnels with pilfered biscuits, emerging covered in cobwebs to his nanny's horror. Yet, as the hour advanced toward midnight, Poirot sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The fire in the library's grate had dimmed to embers, and the wind outside moaned through cracks, carrying faint, ethereal sounds, like distant whispers. "Do you hear that?" Poirot asked, tilting his head. Sir Reginald paused, listening. "The wind through the chimneys, old boy, plays tricks on the ears. Or perhaps it's the manor's way of bidding good night." Poirot smiled enigmatically. "Ah, mon ami, even serenity has its voices. But enough for tonight. The journey fatigues me." They bid each other bonne nuit, and Graves appeared as if summoned by thought, leading Poirot to his chamber. The room was a cocoon of luxury, velvet drapes in deep crimson framing a four-poster bed piled with downy quilts, a washstand with porcelain basin, and a window overlooking the moonlit gardens. As Poirot prepared for bed, slipping into his monogrammed pajamas, his thoughts lingered on Lady Evelyn. Lying beneath the covers, the sheets cool and inviting, he replayed the evening's details. The portrait's gaze, the journal's enigmas, the subtle unease in Sir Reginald's tales, they formed a gentle enigma, not urgent, but intriguing. The manor's shadows, far from ominous, danced playfully in the candlelight, lulling his senses. Outside, an owl hooted softly, a nocturnal lullaby. As sleep approached, Poirot's little grey cells hummed contentedly, piecing fragments without haste. The mystery of the forgotten murder simmered like a pot on low flame, promising revelations in due time. For now, the whispering manor cradled him in peaceful repose, the world outside fading into dreams. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Garden. The first rays of dawn pierced the heavy curtains of Poirot's chamber, painting the room in hues of amber and rose. He stirred beneath the quilts, his internal clock as precise as a Swiss timepiece, awakening him to the symphony of nature outside. Birds trilled in harmonious discord, a blackbird's flute-like call mingling with the chatter of sparrows, as if composing an overture for the day. Poirot rose, performing his morning ablutions with meticulous care. A splash of cool water from the porcelain basin, a brisk comb through his hair, and a final twitch of his moustache in the gilded mirror. Dressed in a lightweight tweed suit tailored for country rambles, he descended the grand staircase, the wood creaking softly underfoot, like an old confidant sharing secrets. The manor house slumbered still, its corridors empty, save for the faint aroma of baking bread wafting from the distant kitchens. Poirot made his way to the conservatory, a glass-domed annex bursting with potted ferns and exotic blooms, where a simple breakfast awaited: fresh croissants, a pot of steaming coffee, and a bowl of dew-kissed strawberries from the estate's own patch. As he savoured the tart berries, His mind revisited the enigmas of the previous eve. Lady Evelyn's portrait lingered in his thoughts, her emerald eyes a silent challenge. But haste was not Poirot's way. Mysteries unfolded like fine wine, requiring aeration. He decided a promenade in the gardens would stimulate his little grey cells, allowing the fresh air to weave clarity into his deductions. Stepping out through French doors onto a flagstone terrace, Poirot was enveloped by the morning's embrace. The gardens sprawled before him like a living tapestry, terraced lawns descending in gentle tiers toward a shimmering pond. Hedges of yew clipped into labyrinthine patterns, bordered beds of vibrant asters and dahlias, their petals unfurling in the sunlight. Bees hummed busily, darting from bloom to bloom, while a peacock strutted across the grass, its iridescent tail fanning in a display of vain glory. Poirot wandered down a gravel path lined with statues, marble nymphs and satyrs frozen in playful poses, each one whispering tales of classical lore. The air was perfumed with lavender and honeysuckle, a balm that eased the soul. Yet, as he ventured deeper, the cultivated elegance gave way to wilder realms, overgrown thickets where brambles clawed at the edges and ancient willows dipping their branches into the pond like thirsty giants. It was here, by the water's edge, that Sir Reginald found him. The baronet appeared refreshed, clad in a Norfolk jacket and sturdy boots, a walking stick in hand. "Poirot, up with the larks, I see. Care to join me for a proper tour? The gardens hold more than pretty flowers. They're a chronicle of the Hawthorne legacy." "With pleasure, Sir Reginald," Poirot replied, his accent adding a melodic lilt. "Nature, she reveals much to the observant eye. Lead on, mon ami." They ambled along a winding trail that skirted the pond, where koi fish glided lazily beneath lily pads. Sir Reginald pointed out a rare water lily hybrid, cultivated by his grandfather, its blossoms a delicate pink veined with gold. He was a botanist at heart, traveled to the Amazon for specimens, brought back this beauty, along with stories of piranhas and lost tribes. Poirot nodded, his gaze scanning the surroundings. Impressive. And what of Lady Evelyn? Did she share this passion for flora? Sir Reginald's step faltered momentarily. Evelyn? Oh, she adored the wilder parts, said the tamed beds were for show, but the untamed corners held the real magic. There's a spot she favored, a secluded arbor beyond the rose arbor. Shall we? They pressed on, the path narrowing into a tunnel of arching roses, thorns glinting like tiny daggers. Emerging on the other side, they entered a secluded glade, dominated by an octagonal gazebo of weathered teak, its roof tiled in mossy slate. Vines of wisteria clung to its pillars, their purple cascades long faded, but promising spring revival. The structure overlooked a ravine, where a brook babbled far below, its waters carving through fern-draped rocks. Poirot circled the gazebo, his keen eyes noting details. The intricate latticework etched with faint carvings, initials intertwined with hearts, and the floorboards, splintered in places as if from hurried footsteps. Then, something caught his attention. Irregular gouges in the stone threshold, deep and jagged, as though made by a desperate scrape of metal or heel. Curious, Poirot murmured, kneeling for a closer inspection. The marks formed erratic patterns, not the wear of time, but something more deliberate, perhaps frantic. Sir Reginald leaned on his stick, peering down. "What have you spotted? Termites? We've had issues with the woodworm." "No, no," Poirot said, rising and dusting his knees. "These are not the work of insects. They suggest resistance. A struggle, perhaps. Tell me, was this Lady Evelyn's retreat?" Before Sir Reginald could respond, A rustle from the underbrush announced an arrival. A weathered figure emerged, clad in mud-stained overalls and a flat cap, carrying a pair of pruning shears. His face was a map of wrinkles, eyes sharp beneath bushy brows, and a pipe clenched between tobacco-stained teeth. "Mornin', Sir Reginald," the man grunted, touching his cap. "And guest, Wilkins here, groundskeeper since the old king's days." Sir Reginald introduced Poirot with a wave. "Mr. Wilkins keeps this place from reverting to jungle. Been with the family forever. Knew my great-aunt, didn't you?" Wilkins nodded slowly, puffing on his pipe, releasing a cloud of aromatic smoke that smelled of cherry wood. "Aye, Lady Evelyn. Spirited lass, that one. Spent hours here, sketchin' birds or readin' them fancy novels. But the night she went missin', heard voices I did, raised in argument. Thought it was the wind at first, but no. Sharp words, like knives." Poirot's interest piqued. He stepped forward. "Voices? From whom, Monsieur Wilkins? And what was said?" The groundskeeper glanced around, as if the foliage might eavesdrop. Couldn't make out all, but a man's voice, deep and angry. Something about betrayal, and the locket's mine. Lady Evelyn shot back, fierce as a fox. "You'll not have it, not while I breathe." Then silence, sudden-like. Next morning, she was gone. Folks said she slipped on the cliffs yonder, but I reckon different. Sir Reginald frowned, shifting uncomfortably. "You've never mentioned this before, Wilkins. Why now?" The old man shrugged, clipping a stray vine with his shears. "No one asked proper. And time buries things, don't it? But that locket, family heirloom, gold with emeralds matching her eyes, vanished with her. Some say it held a portrait miniature, or maybe a poison vial. Old tales." Poirot absorbed this, his mind racing like a well-oiled engine. A quarrel, a locket, betrayal. The pieces hinted at passion gone awry. "This man, did you glimpse him? A suitor, perhaps?" Wilkins puffed thoughtfully. "Shadowy figure, tall with a limp. Reminded me of that artist chap who visited often. Victor Langford, painted her. Portrait. Jealous type, always hovering. Left the village after, never returned." The conversation deepened as they sat on the gazebo's benches, the brook's murmur providing a soothing backdrop. Wilkins recounted village folklore, how Langford, a bohemian from London, had courted Evelyn amid scandal, promising elopement but entangled in debts. She rejected him public-like at a garden fete, Wilkins said, right here under these vines. He stormed off, vowing revenge. Week later, poof, she's missed. Sir Reginald interjected, his voice tinged with skepticism. Langford? He was harmless, a dreamer. Painted the gazebo in one of his works, called it Echoes of Eden. Still hangs in the attic. Poirot probed further, drawing out details like a maestro conducting a subtle symphony. Wilkins described the fate. Lanterns strung like stars, guests in finery sipping punch laced with elderflower, Evelyn in a gown of sapphire silk, her locket gleaming. Langford's proposal, whispered amid the roses, met with her laughter. Kind, but firm. Not for gold or glory, she'd said. My heart's my own. As the sun climbed higher, casting dappled patterns through the leaves, the trio explored further. Wilkins led them to a hidden copse nearby, where a stone bench overlooked the ravine. Engraved on it, "For E.H., where echoes linger." Poirot traced the letters, feeling the cool granite. Echoes of words unspoken or deeds undone. Their discourse turned lighter momentarily, Wilkins sharing tips on rose cultivation, how to graft hybrids for bolder colours, while Sir Reginald reminisced about childhood games in these woods, building forts from fallen branches. Yet the undercurrent of mystery persisted, Wilkins hinting at a buried time capsule Evelyn had mentioned, filled with letters that could unravel truths. By midday, hunger beckoned. They retraced their steps, the path now alive with butterflies flitting in iridescent swirls. Back at the manor, luncheon awaited in the sunroom, a spread of cold meats, artisanal cheeses, and a salad of heirloom tomatoes drizzled with balsamic. As they dined, Poirot pondered aloud. The gazebo's marks, the voices, the locket, they form a mosaic, not accident, but intention. Sir Reginald poured wine, a light Chablis. You're stirring old dust, Poirot, but if there's truth, let's unearth it gently. The meal concluded with fresh figs and honey, the flavors a sweet counterpoint to the morning's revelations. Poirot retired to a shaded hammock in the orchard, swaying gently as he catalogued the clues. Langford's limp, the locket's secret, the argument's echoes. The garden's serenity enveloped him, each breeze a whisper of progress, the enigma advancing without rush. In this verdant haven, the threads tightened, promising deeper dives ahead. Yet for now, the chapter rested in balanced repose, the sun's warmth a gentle seal on the day's discoveries. Chapter 3. The Hidden Ledger. The afternoon sun slanted through the manor's tall windows, casting elongated pools of light across the parquet floors like golden rivers meandering through a polished landscape. Hercule Poirot, having savoured a leisurely luncheon of poached salmon and asparagus in the sun-dappled dining hall, felt invigorated by the crisp Devon air that seeped through open casements. His morning revelations in the garden, the enigmatic gouges, the spectral argument recounted by Wilkins, had ignited a quiet fire in his methodical mind. Yet Poirot knew that true detection required not just intuition, but tangible threads to weave into evidence. He made his way back to the library, the heart of Eldridge Manor's intellectual soul, where the air hung heavy with the scent of beeswax and ancient ink. The room's vaulted ceiling arched like a cathedral nave, supported by columns carved with acanthus leaves, and the shelves groaned under the weight of tomes spanning centuries, from illuminated manuscripts to leather-clad first editions. A massive globe, its continents faded from countless spins, occupied one corner, while a collection of astrolabes and orreries gleamed on a side table, testaments to the Hawthorne's scholarly pursuits. Sir Reginald joined him shortly, carrying a brass keyring that jingled like distant bells. Poirot, you're drawn back here like a moth to flame, eager to sift through the dust of history. Precisely, mon ami, Poirot replied, his eyes sparkling with purpose. The past is a ledger of its own, entries of deeds, debits of secrets. Might we examine the family records, financials, correspondences? Such documents often reveal what whispers cannot. Sir Reginald unlocked a concealed panel behind a row of encyclopedias, revealing a hidden safe bolted into the wall. With a twist of the dial, it swung open to disclose stacks of bound volumes, their spines cracked and gilded. He selected one, a hefty tome bound in maroon calfskin, embossed with the year 1923 in faded gold. The estate ledger from Evelyn's time, kept meticulously by the steward back then, a chap named Hargrove, precise as a metronome. They settled at the oak desk, the ledger spread before them like a map to buried treasure. Poirot donned a pair of pince-nez, his fingers tracing the columns of elegant copperplate script, credits for wool sales from the tenant farms, debits for imported silks and Parisian perfumes. Entries danced across pages, payments to tailors, donations to suffrage causes, even a curious sum for celestial observations at a local observatory. But as Poirot delved deeper, anomalies emerged like hidden currents in a calm sea. A series of disbursements caught his eye, modest amounts labeled confidential consultations, directed to a Dr. Elias Thorne in the nearby village of Ashford Hollow. The dates clustered around the weeks preceding Evelyn's disappearance, escalating in frequency. Regardez, Poirot said, pointing, these payments, discreet, increasing. To an apothecary, perhaps? Thorn, the name evokes potions and phials. Sir Reginald leaned in, his brow furrowing. Thorn was the village chemist, yes. Family friend, compounded remedies for ailments. Evelyn suffered from migraines. Maybe these were for her treatments. But why confidential? Poirot's moustache quivered. Confidentiality suggests more than headaches. Poisons, mon ami, are the silent assassins of high society. We must visit this Ashford Hollow, speak to descendants, uncover the elixir's tale. The decision made, they summoned the carriage, a vintage landau with plush seats and brass fittings that gleamed in the sunlight. The drive wound through hedge-rowed lanes, past fields of grazing sheep and orchards heavy with russet apples. Ashford Hollow nestled in a valley, a quaint cluster of thatched cottages and a Norman church spire piercing the sky. The village green bustled gently, a baker hawking crusty loaves, children chasing hoops, and a flock of geese honking indignantly at passers-by. They alighted before Thorne's apothecary, a timber-framed shop with a sign depicting a mortar and pestle swinging in the breeze. The interior was a labyrinth of shelves lined with coloured glass jars, emerald for emetics, amber for tonics, and bundles of dried herbs hanging like fragrant chandeliers. Behind the counter stood Mrs. Lydia Thorne, a widow in her 60s with silver-streaked hair pinned in a neat bun and spectacles perched on her nose. Her apron bore faint stains of indigo and saffron, badges of her trade. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," she greeted, her voice warm as mulled cider. "Sir Reginald, it's been ages, and this must be the famed detective I've read about in the papers." Poirot bowed slightly. "Madame Thorne, your reputation precedes you as well. We come seeking echoes of the past, specifically your late husband's grandfather, Dr. Elias Thorne." Mrs. Thorne's eyes widened behind her lenses. "Grandfather Elias? A legend in these parts, mixed remedies that cured everything from colic to consumption. What sparks your interest?" Sir Reginald explained the ledger entries, and Poirot interjected smoothly, "These payments from Lady Evelyn, confidential, might they pertain to something unconventional, a herb or compound not for public knowledge?" Mrs. Thorne paused, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Come through to the back parlor. Walls have ears in small villages." She led them to a cozy room adorned with botanical prints and a simmering kettle on a stove. Pouring elderberry cordial into mismatched cups, she settled into a rocking chair. "Grandfather kept journals, detailed every mixture. Let me fetch one." She retrieved a worn ledger from a cupboard, its pages brittle with age. Flipping to 1923, she traced entries mirroring the manor's records. Here, payments from Evelyn for special drafts. But look closer. Annotations in code. Grandfather used a cipher based on Linnaean names. Let me decode. Atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade. Diluted for pain, but in strength, toxin. Poirot leaned forward, his gaze intense. Belladonna, the beautiful lady's poison, dilates pupils, quickens the heart, then silences it forever. Was this for Evelyn's migraines or something sinister? Mrs. Thorne sipped her cordial thoughtfully. Family lore says Evelyn sought it for more than relief. She confided in grandfather about a tormentor, someone blackmailing her over a youthful indiscretion. A letter from her suffragette days, perhaps, involving a radical plot. She wanted a means to deter if needed. But grandfather refused full potency, supplied only a mild tincture. Yet, the night she vanished, his journal notes a frantic visit from a man, tall, limping, demanding the full extract. Sir Reginald gasped. Langford, the artist Wilkins mentioned? Possibly, Mrs. Thorne nodded. Grandfather described him as the shadowed suitor, wild-eyed waving a pistol, threatened ruin if denied. Grandfather complied under duress, but diluted it further, enough to sicken, not kill. He never forgave himself, suspecting complicity. The revelation hung in the air like incense smoke. Poirot probed gently. This letter, what became of it? And the locket Wilkins spoke of, might it connect? Mrs. Thorne rose, unlocking a small chest on the mantel. From within, she produced a faded envelope, sealed with wax. Grandfather preserved this, Evelyn's final missive entrusted for safekeeping. If I fall, she wrote, seek the locket's heart. It holds the key to my silence. The locket, rumored to contain a micro-photograph of the incriminating document. Their dialogue unfolded like a tapestry unrolling. Mrs. Thorne recounting grandfather's remorse, how he searched the cliffs post-disappearance, finding only a torn ribbon from Evelyn's gown. Sir Reginald sharing estate whispers of Langford's debts, funded by art forgeries. Poirot connecting dots, the poison as weapon in a lover's vendetta. As shadows lengthened, they explored the apothecary's herb garden behind the shop, a verdant plot of raised beds bursting with foxglove, hemlock, and healing comfrey. Mrs. Thorne demonstrated ancient compounding techniques, grinding petals in a marble mortar, the rhythmic pestle evoking alchemical rites. Poisons and cures, she mused, two sides of nature's coin. Evelyn understood that duality, fought for women's rights, yet navigated society's toxins. Poirot, inspired, sketched a timeline on scrap paper, payments aligning with Langford's visits, the argument Wilkins overheard as a confrontation over the letter. The locket, he declared, it is the pivot, hidden perhaps in a place of sentiment. Bidding farewell with a gift of herbal sachets for restful sleep, they returned to the manor as dusk painted the sky in lavender streaks. In the library once more, Poirot pored over the ledger anew, cross-referencing with Thorne's journal. A marginal note leaped out. A payment for locket repair to a London jeweller dated days before the vanishing. Sir Reginald paced, excitement building. If the locket held proof, Langford would kill for it. But Evelyn, poisoned, then staged as a fall? Précisément, Poirot affirmed. The scratches in the gazebo, her fight, the poison, administered in a shared drink. We approach the core, but motives deepen. The evening meal in the conservatory, venison pie with wild mushrooms, paired with a robust claret, served as interlude. Conversation veered to lighter realms. Sir Reginald's travels to Egypt, unearthing scarabs. Poirot's anecdotes of Parisian cafes, where crimes brewed over absinthe. Yet the ledger's shadows lingered, a satisfying knot untangling thread by thread. As night fell, Poirot retired to his chamber, the herbal sachet under his pillow diffusing calming lavender. His mind, a vault of order, catalogued the day's harvest, the ciphered poison, the entrusted letter, the locket's enigma. The puzzle advanced, each piece locking with precision, yet the full picture beckoned tomorrow's light. In the manor's hush, the hidden ledger's truths resonated like a distant chime, closing the chapter in contemplative equilibrium, the intrigue poised for revelation. Chapter 4. Shadows of Suspicion. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of indigo and crimson, Hercule Poirot stood by the bay window of the drawing room, observing the manor's grounds transform under twilight's veil. The gardens, once vibrant with midday bustle, now shimmered in ethereal quietude, the pond reflecting the first stars like scattered diamonds. The revelations from the apothecary's den, the diluted belladonna, the blackmail letter, the locket's cryptic promise, had crystallized in his mind, forming a lattice of suspicion that demanded confrontation. Yet Poirot's approach was never blunt force. It was a ballet of subtlety, drawing truths from shadows without shattering the fragile peace. He turned to Sir Reginald, who was polishing a silver candelabrum by the fireplace, its flames flickering like conspiratorial whispers. Mon ami, the hour grows ripe for assembly. Summon the household, Graves, Wilkins, and that distant cousin of yours, Mr. Edmund Hawthorne, who arrived unannounced this morning. Also, invite the village constable if he's about. Discretion is key, but authority lends weight. Sir Reginald set down the cloth, his face a mask of reluctant resolve. Edmund? He's here on business, claims to trace family artifacts for auction, and Constable Barrow, solid fellow, but this might ruffle feathers. You're certain? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Certainty is the detective's compass. The shadows lengthen, let us illuminate them. The drawing room soon filled with the summoned souls, the air thickening with unspoken tensions. Graves entered first, his livery impeccable, carrying a tray of crystal decanters filled with amber sherry. Wilkins followed, his boots leaving faint mud prints on the Aubusson carpet, pipe tucked in his pocket. Edmund Hawthorne, a wiry man in his 40s with slicked-back hair and a pencil moustache, lounged on a settee, fiddling with a pocket watch. Last came Constable Barrow, a burly figure in tweed, his badge glinting under the gas lamps, summoned from his evening pipe by a hasty messenger. Poirot positioned himself at the room's center, beneath a chandelier that tinkled softly in the draught. Mesdames et messieurs, though we lack the fairer sex tonight, thank you for gathering. Eldridge Manor harbors a riddle from yesteryear, the fate of Lady Evelyn. What was deemed accident, I posit as artifice. Let us converse, unravel the veils. Edmund snorted lightly, pouring himself a sherry. Artifice? Cousin, this is dramatic. Evelyn's cliffside tumble is old news, tragic but closed. Why dredge it now? Sir Reginald interjected, seating himself heavily. Because clues emerge, Edmund. Poirot's unearthed payments, poisons, things that point fingers. The constable cleared his throat, notepad in hand. Payments? Poisons? This sounds official. Proceed, Monsieur Poirot. I'm all ears. Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. We begin with motives. Mr. Edmund, you inherit should the line falter. Eldridge passes to you if Sir Reginald departs childless. Evelyn's death cleared a path, no? Your expertise in artifacts? Perhaps the locket intrigued you? Edmund's watch clicked shut sharply. Absurd. I was a boy in 23, barely 10. And the locket? A bauble worth pennies sentimentally. My auctions deal in Ming vases, not family trinkets. Wilkins grumbled from his corner chair. Bauble. Lady Evelyn cherished it, said it guarded her soul. You Hawthorns always eyed heirlooms like hawks. Graves, ever the stoic, refilled glasses silently, but Poirot noted his hands trembled slightly. And you, Graves, loyal butler since the war. You served Evelyn's teas, handled her correspondences. Did you intercept letters? The blackmail note? Perhaps you facilitated its delivery for a cut? Graves stiffened, his voice a controlled murmur. Sir, I am affronted. My service is impeccable. I carried missives, yes, but blind to contents. Evelyn trusted me with her sealing wax, not her secrets. The room's atmosphere crackled, the fire popping like punctuation. Constable Barrow scribbled furiously. Blackmail, details, man. Poirot obliged, weaving the tale without repetition, the apothecary's coerced supply, Langford's limping silhouette demanding venom. But Langford vanished post-event. Suspects among us, or their echoes. Wilkins leaned forward, his wrinkled face animated. Langford had kin, a sister in the village, married a blacksmith. She might know his haunts. Always bragged he fled to the colonies, pockets lined with ill-gotten gains. Edmund laughed derisively. Colonies? Romantic rot. If poison's involved, check the still room. Evelyn brewed her own tisanes there, experimenting with herbs from the Amazon imports. Sir Reginald's eyes widened. The still room? Forgotten. That nook, tucked in the west wing, behind the pantry. Evelyn distilled essences. Yes, rosewater, lavender oil. But belladonna? She wouldn't. Poirot seized the thread. A visit is warranted. Lead us, Sir Reginald. The group migrated, candles in hand, through dimly lit passages where portraits loomed like judges. The still room was a compact chamber, redolent of dried petals and vinegar, shelves lined with stoppered bottles labeled in Evelyn's flowing script. Essence of nightshade, dilute sparingly. Dust motes swirled as they entered, the air stale yet charged. Constable Barrow examined a vial, holding it to the light. Nightshade, belladonna, right? Matches your apothecary yarn. Graves, hovering by the door, suddenly paled. Wait, that ledger entry for repairs. The locket wasn't fixed in London. Evelyn did it here, soldering a hidden clasp herself. I aided her, holding the flame. Poirot whirled. A hidden clasp? For what purpose? Graves hesitated, then confessed softly. To conceal a tiny vial. Emergency antidote, she said, against venomous bites. But perhaps for self-protection. Wilkins snorted. Protection or suicide pact? Heard her mutter about ending the torment after Langford's rages. Edmund inspected the workbench, uncovering a tarnished toolkit. Look, engraving tools. She inscribed something inside the locket, maybe coordinates or a name. The constable nodded approvingly. This ties knots. If the locket held poison or proof, Langford's motive strengthens. But where's he now? Poirot's mind raced, connecting fresh dots. Perhaps not fled. Wilkins, your sister-in-law, the blacksmith's wife. She harbored him? Wilkins shifted uncomfortably. Aye, for a spell. He ranted about betrayal, then vanished by train. Left a sketchbook, doodles of the gazebo, cliffs marked with X's. Sir Reginald gasped. X's? Like treasure maps? Evelyn loved puzzles, hid Easter eggs with riddles for us children. The discussion pivoted to childhood games, easing tension momentarily. Edmund recalling hunts for chocolate caches in the attics. Graves sharing how Evelyn encoded clues in flower arrangements, roses for romance, thorns for danger. Yet Poirot steered back. These games mirror her final act. The locket, perhaps buried, not lost. Constable, organize a discreet search tomorrow at dawn, focusing on the ravine base. Barrow pocketed his notepad. Will do, but evidence chain. Blackmail letter threatens exposure of her radical past. Arrests during protests. Langford, spurned lover, uses it for leverage. Demands locket as payoff. She refuses. He poisons her tea in the gazebo. Stages the fall. Edmund protested. My family name. Sullied by conjecture, Wilkins countered. Truth sullies worse if buried. I saw footprints that night, limping tracks to the cliffs. Graves added reluctantly, and I overheard Evelyn on the telephone days prior arranging a meeting with Langford. One last chance, she said. The revelations cascaded, each suspect absolving partially while implicating others. Poirot orchestrated masterfully, probing alibis. Edmund in boarding school, yet his father, Evelyn's rival, might have pulled strings. Wilkins tending livestock, but with gaps. Graves in the cellars, uncorroborated. As the clock struck 11, the fire dwindled to glowing coals, casting elongated silhouettes. Sir Reginald proposed adjourning. Enough shadows for one night. Poirot, you've stirred the pot masterfully. The group dispersed, murmurs trailing like smoke. Poirot lingered with Sir Reginald, sipping a final sherry. Progress, mon ami. Suspicions cast light. Edmund's greed, Graves' complicity, Wilkins' omissions, Langford's ghost. Yet the locket eludes, holding the final whisper. Outside, the night enveloped the manor, owls calling in mournful duet. Poirot retired to a guest study adjacent, poring over a borrowed map of the estate, marking potential hiding spots. The old well, the folly ruins, the beech tree hollow where Evelyn carved her initials. Dreams that night wove intrigue, visions of lockets pulsing like hearts, poisons bubbling in cauldrons. Dawn would bring excavation, but for now, the chapter hovered in suspenseful poise, threads taut, ready for the morrow's tug. In the manor's velvet dark, suspicions danced like fireflies, illuminating paths to truth without fully banishing the gloom. Chapter 5. The Unveiled Truth. The dawn broke over Eldridge Manor with a tender glow, as if the sun itself hesitated to disturb the secrets nestled within its ancient walls. Hercule Poirot stood on the balcony of his chamber, the cool morning air brushing his face like a silken scarf. Below, the gardens unfurled in a mosaic of dew-kissed greens and silvers, the ravine a shadowed scar cutting through the estate's heart. The clues gathered, gouges in the gazebo, Belladonna's whisper, the locket's elusive promise, had coalesced into a pattern only Poirot's little grey cells could fully discern. Today, the final act awaited, a denouement to lay the manor's ghosts to rest. He descended to the great hall, where the household assembled under the vaulted ceiling, adorned with frescoes of celestial maps, their stars faded but still shimmering in the morning light. The air carried the scent of polished wood and fresh coffee, served by graves in silver urns alongside warm brioche and quince jam. Sir Reginald stood by the grand fireplace, its mantel carved with ivy motifs, his expression a blend of anticipation and dread. Wilkins, the groundskeeper, leaned against a pillar, his weathered hands clutching a mug, while Edmund Hawthorne, the cousin, fidgeted with a cufflink, his eyes darting like a cornered fox. Constable Barrow, summoned once more, stood resolute, his notebook ready to capture the truth. Poirot positioned himself before the gathered, his posture erect, his voice a calm cadence that filled the hall like a gentle tide. Mes amis, we stand at the precipice of revelation. Lady Evelyn's fate, long cloaked as accident, was a murder most deliberate. Today, we unveil the threads, woven from poison, betrayal, and a locket's hidden heart, to honor her memory and restore peace. Edmund scoffed, crossing his arms. Poirot, your theatrics are tiresome. A cliff fall, nothing more. Let the dead rest. Sir Reginald shot him a glance. Hold your tongue, Edmund. Poirot's unearthed more in days than we did in decades. Speak, man. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. Merci, Sir Reginald. Let us begin with the scene, the gazebo, where scratches marred the stone, signs of struggle, not accident. The apothecary's journal revealed Belladonna, coerced from Dr. Thorne by a limping suitor, Victor Langford, the spurned artist. But the motive? Not love alone, but greed and fear. He paced, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor. Langford, enamored yet indebted, sought Evelyn's locket, not for sentiment, but for what it concealed. A micro-photograph, as Mrs. Thorne disclosed, of a letter exposing a youthful plot, a suffragette scheme to disrupt a parliamentary vote. Such a document, in 1923, could ruin her family's standing, leverage for blackmail. Constable Barrow nodded, scribbling. Blackmail fits. But how'd it lead to murder? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Patience, Monsieur Barrow. The locket, repaired in the still room, held a secret compartment. Graves confirmed this. Evelyn, aware of Langford's threats, hid the photograph within, a safeguard against his demands. On that storm-swept night they met in the gazebo, not for romance but reckoning. Wilkins interjected, his voice gravelly. I heard him, shouting about betrayal, the locket, her voice sharp as thorns, refusing him. Précisément, Poirot continued. Langford, desperate, brought poisoned tea, belladonna, not deadly in Dr. Thorne's dilution, but enough to weaken. Evelyn resisted, her heels scraping the stone as she fought his grasp. He overpowered her, dragging her to the cliff's edge, staging the fall. The locket, clutched tightly, was torn free, lost in the ravine. Sir Reginald paled, gripping the mantle. Staged? But the searchers found nothing, no body, no locket. Poirot smiled enigmatically. Because, mon ami, the ravine conceals well. This morning, at my request, Constable Barrow's men scoured its depths, guided by Langford's sketchbook markings. Those X's Wilkins recalled. And what did they find? Barrow stepped forward, producing a small, mud-caked box from his satchel. He opened it to reveal a golden locket, its emerald inlay dulled but intact. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Found it near the brook, Barrow said, wedged in roots as if hidden deliberately. Poirot took the locket, his fingers deftly probing its clasp. With a soft click, it sprang open, revealing a tiny glass plate, a microphotograph, miraculously preserved. He held it to the light, where faint text glimmered. This, mes amis, is the letter. Decoded. It confirms Evelyn's role in a planned protest, noble but scandalous. Langford sought to sell it to her enemies, funding his escape. Edmund stood abruptly. Preposterous. You've no proof Langford killed her, just theories spun from old trinkets. Poirot's gaze was steel. Not theories, Monsieur Edmund. Proof lies in patterns. The still room's tools bore Evelyn's initials, used to engrave a warning inside the locket. V.L. betrays. She suspected his intent, and Langford's sister, traced by Barrow yesterday, confessed he returned that night, bloodied, raving of ending her defiance. He fled to Canada, dying in obscurity, but his guilt endures. Graves, silent until now, sank into a chair, his face ashen. I carried that tea tray to the gazebo as she requested. I thought it mere refreshment. Did I aid a murderer? Poirot's tone softened. Non, Graves. You were unwitting, loyal. Evelyn's trust in you was her shield, not her downfall. Wilkins wiped his brow. And me. Should have spoken sooner, but fear of the Hawthorns' wrath kept me mum. Forgive me, Sir Reginald. Sir Reginald approached the locket, his fingers trembling as he touched it. Evelyn's spirit haunted us, demanding justice. Poirot, you've given her voice. The hall fell silent, save for the crackle of the fire rekindled by a maid. Poirot continued, weaving the final threads. Langford's plan was meticulous yet flawed. He poisoned her lightly, intending compliance, but her resistance forced his hand. The cliff was his alibi, nature's accomplice. The locket, dropped in haste, became her testament, hidden until now. Constable Barrow pocketed the photograph. This'll close the case, cold, but solved. I'll file it as murder, Langford deceased. No need for trials, but the village deserves truth. Edmund, subdued, muttered, My father spoke of Evelyn's recklessness, but never this. I'm sorry for doubting. The resolution settled like dust after a storm. Sir Reginald invited all to the dining hall for a restorative breakfast, a gesture of unity. Over plates of kedgeree and spiced pears, the conversation turned to healing. Wilkins offered to plant a memorial rosebed for Evelyn, its blooms to match her locket's emeralds. Graves pledged to catalogue her journals for the family archives. Edmund proposed funding a village library in her name, honouring her suffragette ideals. Poirot savoured a perfectly brewed Darjeeling, his mind at ease. Justice, mes amis, is not vengeance but balance. Evelyn's truth shines, her legacy freed from shadows. As the meal ended, Poirot strolled to the terrace, where the morning sun bathed the gardens in golden warmth. Sir Reginald joined him, the locket now in a velvet box, a relic of closure. "You've done it, Poirot. The manor feels lighter, as if she's at peace." "Oui?" Poirot replied, gazing at the horizon. "The little grey cells, they align the chaos. Now, I take my leave to savour London's noise once more." The carriage awaited, horses snorting softly in the crisp air. Poirot boarded, tipping his hat to the manor's silhouette, its turrets proud against the sky. As the wheels rolled down the gravel drive, the landscape unfolded. Meadows dotted with grazing deer, the ravine now a quiet witness to truth unveiled. The mystery fully unraveled left no threads dangling, its conclusion a harmonious chord. In the carriage's sway, Poirot closed his eyes, the locket's image lingering, a golden heart that guarded a woman's courage. Eldridge Manor receded, its whispers stilled, replaced by the gentle rhythm of hooves, carrying him toward new horizons and restful dreams.